Worse yet, that poor engine quit at the worst time, as the sunset was swallowed by the sea. As hope faded away, the sinking problem of the little boat became more pressing as night fell. Failing water seemed like battling a sea monster, yielding just a cup's worth. So, everyone tossed unnecessary items into the sea to lighten the load. Among the wet clothes were some bizarre trophies. USLA stared at the medals in hand, lost in. They were tiny but packed with personal glory, light but heavy with their father's hopes, precious yet far less important than life in front of them. After a moment of thinking, USLA decided to give medals a final purpose, sinking them for a glimmer of life. As waves propelled the boat, the phone was lifted, finally catching a faint signal. He rushed to call the Greek Coast Guard, desperately detailing everyone's predicament. He even mentioned people needing help on board, though they'd likely be deported. But it was certainly better than perishing in this dark abyss. However, the response was chillier than an icebox. The chilly reply was not in line with policy, ending the call, leaving them floundering. Sister Sarah found her courage, grabbed a knife, cut the rope holding her, tied it around herself, and boldly leaped into the sea to lighten the boat's load. Seeing this, USLA followed Sarah's bravery, and the Afghan youth soon jumped in too. Heroes are silent, and time is mute. Perhaps their fearless spirit moved the Almighty, as the broken engine finally rebooted after hours. He quickly pulled up the submerged Afghan young man, but the sisters showed no interest in getting back on the boat. They knew the boat's limit, so they trailed, exhausted but determined. As USLA was about to sink, her father's training advice flashed into her mind. Find your boat, swim your boat, echoed in her mind, and in a moment of illusion, a path of her own began to unfold before her, transforming her training into the drive to move forward. With sheer determination, she swam and swam until exhaustion took over. As the sea breeze carried away wave after wave of regrets, the shadowy memories of the past glimmered on the sea surface, constantly reminding USLA not to fall into slumber. At the same time, her sister never stopped calling out to the sleeping figure, and when she opened her eyes again, rising sun ignited horizon clouds. Victory's coast was within reach. She began to paddle harder, dragging the now sluggish boat toward the new world. Hard work pays off, and they finally reached the land for shore. Yet instead of a triumphant joy, everyone felt the lingering shock of survival. This is a romantic and civilized love coast, filled with countless sweet memories, but it also bared countless desperate refugee lives. The new world's gateway was filled with life jackets. It seemed that the hardships they endured had already become the norm in these waters, as the torrent of refugees poured in. Local residents were overwhelmed by the situation, so the newcomers were bound to face discrimination. Even with money, they couldn't buy a morsel of food. However, a charitable organization at the port was willing to help, providing essential supplies. The full moon was taking its sweet time to appear as the sisters gazed at the port for far too long. All their thoughts under the sun formed a poem, illuminating their path of no return. Choosing this journey meant they were destined to keep moving forward. After a brief rest, they set off northward again, trekking along the tracks to measure the distance between cities. Crossing wooden bridges where brown earth met, they comforted each other by the campfire and searched for a path forward among the ruins. While crossing the Serbian border, a smuggler warned them that if they continued, they'd get caught by the police and sent to a detention camp. He promised a shortcut that could take them straight into Hungary, charging just €500 each. They hesitantly paid, boarded, but soon the smuggler dumped them in the middle of nowhere. Left with no choice, they trudged towards the setting sun, crossing swamps and dead branches. By noon on the following day, they had finally managed to cross into Serbia and arrived in Hungary. They encountered another smuggler, charging €800 each for Budapest. Despite being scammed, they had to trust him. Fortunately, there was no deceit this time. The car dashed over mountains and obstacles for a whole day, finally arriving in the capital, Budapest. Now they would rest for a night at this abandoned car factory, and another smuggler would lead the convoy straight to Germany. As they rested, the news on TV featured stories about refugees. Countless refugees, having exhausted their savings, were trekking to Germany, but no one seemed willing to help. Early next morning, USLA went for air in the warehouse but nearly fell prey to an unscrupulous driver. Thankfully, her sister arrived in time. The struggle alerted the local smuggler, who chased the driver away and warned refugees before departing. But despite the smuggler's reassurances, USLA still wouldn't get in. Forgiveness is easy, trust tough. Ultimately, the three chose to walk like the refugees they saw in the news towards Germany. Passing a hotel, their weary bodies overruled their common sense, compelling them to enter. Though it would deplete what little savings they had left, the light of the next morning awakened the sleeping USLA. A cousin who entered brought uplifting news. Chancellor Merkel had responded to the trick news. She immediately sent free buses to assist them, ending the arduous journey, though the road ahead still shone with unknown challenges. After registration, they were placed in a refugee camp thinking they'd reunite in days, but 2 months later, they were still there. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon for more updates.